For your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. Thanks for choosing us. Now we start with the flag bearer of the opposition National Democratic Congress, John Dramani Mahama, because he says he will drastically reduce the size of government he voted into power in the upcoming elections. He says he will run, quote, a lean government, highly effective and efficient government of no more than 60 ministers and deputy ministers, end of quote. Mr. Mahama also says he will launch a renewed fight against corruption. He also promises to stop illegal mining in forest reserves. There's more in this report by Blessed Suga.
It was a night for John, but he came in the company of Jane, his running mate. And with less than 200 days to the presidential election, the NDC flag bearer has kick-started what he calls the Mahama Conversations, a dialogue with the media and other stakeholders, which will afford him the opportunity to sell his nation builder plan.
In addition to my digital conversations, I intend to have a number of such media engagements, not only in Accra, but in other parts of the country. And this is why I'm happy today to be with you again to sustain the conversations about our dear nation, Ghana.
Just when the questions kept raining on from the media, John Dramani Mahama attempted a response to them all, touching on economic restoration to an intensified fight against illegal mining and also vowing to crack down on corruption.
Their will to fight corruption was there. We even retrieved monies from some of those involved in JIDA. We retrieved as much as 50 million Ghana cedis at the time. And so the track record is there. And I can assure you, if you believe that I was imbued with the Father for All syndrome, it has been exercised. And it's been exercised because it's a demand by the people of Ghana. The people of Ghana are asking for accountability. Galamsey is a problem of compliance. We have all the laws. We have everything. It's the enforcement that is the problem. And the enforcement is a problem because those who should be enforcing it are part of the problem. Today, DCs and ministers all have small-scale concessions, and I indulge in Galamsey. And that's why I said, any person who serves in my government, if you want to be a small-scale gold miner, go and be a small-scale gold miner. If you're a DCE, be a small-scale gold miner. Don't take public office under my administration. And so we're not going to countenance having any of our ministers or our political appointees involved in small-scale gold mining so that we can enforce the laws properly. This is not just a promise, it's a commitment. I will reset the economy and Ghana will be open for business for 24 hours a day.
For many years, the National Democratic Congress has criticized the mode of implementation of government's free senior high school policy, with the New Patriotic Party, on the other hand, accusing the opposition party of undermining the policy. However, providing clarity of his party's position regarding the policy, John Mahama noted that the free senior high school policy is here to stay.
My position on free SHS is known. In 2015, I launched Progressive Free SHS. That's what the Constitution says. The only difference between us and MPP is the approach. We thought that we should put the infrastructure in place and we should do the necessary preparation to absorb the free SHS. And so we started with day students. We made it free for day students. And in the second year, we absorbed 120,000 students on the free SHS. Nanado himself lauded me. It's there in the media. Just, if I had my phone here, I would Google it. He said, Nanado lauds Mahama's free SHS. It's there. UNESCO, congratulated us for launching the free SHS. How can a person who launched free SHS be against free SHS? And so it's a political gimmick that is played by our opponents. Free SHS has come to stay.
In the end, John Dramani Mahama remains hopeful that this year's election will go in his favor. And having learnt the bitter lesson of losing the last election, John Mahama says his team will police the system with vigilance as he invites the media to support the cause if they can. Les Ogan's report for Joy News. Kempinski, Gold Coast, Accra.
But how feasible are some of these promises? Let me bring in Professor Michael Ayamga. He's director of the West African Center for Sustainable Rural Transformation, UDS. Thank you for your time here on Newsdesk. I also have Professor Lord Mensah. He's Associate Professor of Finance at UGBS. Thank you for your time here on Newsdesk. Now, I'll start with you, Professor Lord Mensah. Running a lean government, how feasible is it?
Yeah, good morning to our viewers. You know, running a lean government indirectly means, you want to cut down on expenditure. And as a country, we've gotten to a point where we cannot afford to continue to expend unnecessarily, which at the end of the day, if you look at the government sector, that is what attracts what we call goods and services on the expenditure side of our budget. And clearly, if you look at the goods and services and the way we've been jumping the numbers over the past years, it tells you that, yes, indeed, we have been running a country where we spend, but then we don't see, the outcome of the expenditure that we are running. And so if you have a candidate who is promising, a lean government, then I can tell you that, yes, it's in the right direction, because one way or the other, it's going to build up into reduction in expenditure.
We're looking at costs being cost effective. We know it can bring down expenditure, but then in running this government, how feasible is it?
Yeah, I think over the past years, we have been, talking about, bloated government, size, which in the end is not building up into, economic growth. Because if you look at, the current administration, they started with about 110, ministers. And you ask yourself, what has been the outcome of all those ministerial positions? To the extent we created, about 5 additional ministries. Talking about Ministry for Special Initiative, Zongo, Ministry, Ministry for Senior Minister's Office, and all those. And clearly, these are all ministers that you find it to be kind of duplication. If you look at the functions of Ministry of Special Initiative, for instance, most of their activities falls under Trade and Industry Ministry. And so you ask yourself, why do we have to create kind of a parallel, ministry that will attract, funds? Because the technocrats that we find at, the Ministry of Trade and Industry could have run, those activities that were assigned for Ministry for Special Initiative. So, we don't need those parallel ministries as I've indicated. And, running a lean government means that you may have to look at all the ministerial portfolios and then look at the ones that can run, concurrently within the same, ministry. And if you do that, you come to appreciate that you can reduce even the ministries to up to, let's say, 60.
Now, let's look at John Mahama's promise of ensuring that the free SHS policy is here to stay. We're looking at the cost implication of ensuring this policy is still running. There has been several calls for a review of the policy. Do you think it is financially feasible to keep this policy running?
Yeah, for me, anything that will, one way or the other transfer, money to the, citizens indirectly, I go all out to support it. The reason being that if you leave the free SHS money for the political elite, it's going to be a free money available for them to use, which, it will more or less compromise their bargaining power. And those monies, definitely they will find activities for them. So if you have, a free SHS, which is one way or the other, squeezing, the public purse, but then in the end, trying to have, our citizens educated up to a certain level, then of course we have to support it. But then when you talk about the there's going to be a long-run returns. I mean, there's no social intervention that does not come with a long-run, dividend. And I believe that, continuing with the free SHS over time will bring in the necessary dividend that the country, requires of it.
Now, let me bring in Professor Michael Ayamga. He is Director of West African Center for Sustainable Rural Transformation, UDS. Thank you for your time here on Newstakes. I'll start with your overall thoughts about downsizing government and the pledge by John Dramani Mahama to ensure that he runs a lean government. How feasible is this?
Yes, thank you. Good morning to our viewers. It is always very pleasing and it sounds pleasant to imagine that the government is going to be lean. And you are immediately thinking of the savings you are going to make if you are running a new government. But it's always easier said than done. And we are always quick to draw parallels with other democracies, well-established democracies that have been on for hundreds of years. The institutions are well tested, and they kind of know what is going on where at any point in time. In our system, we have consistently changed the ministries, the agencies, and so on. So they never actually get very good at doing what they are supposed to do. So the efficiency in there is very questionable. So I am always in for an optimal government. I don't think that a lean government is precisely the right thing to do. Of course, the kind of market we are having as a cabinet today is problematic. It's a very large one. That one, there is no running away from it. But I am looking at a situation where our system of government puts the ministry at the apex of everything. All approval sometimes has to come from the minister. So if you have a very elaborate program at the base and it tapers into one ministry, then you end up having gridlock up there. You have a lot of bureaucracy slowing down things. So it is not always efficient. So it's easier said than done. I would want to wait and see how that plays out, but I would rather go for an optimal size of government that is able to deliver what we want to do or what the government seeks to do, rather than just say, I want to save money. I think our problems in this country is not because the government is big. It is other issues which I think Mahama rightly outlined. The leadership and the desire to fight the wastage that is associated with these ministries. That is the problem. I don't think it's the emoluments of ministers that has driven us where we are. It is the wanton dissipation of state resources, mismanagement, and so on, also by a large number of ministries. That is our key challenge here. So I would rather we go for an optimal size of government relative to what government wants to do. It is always a balancing act. If we are reducing number of ministries, then you have to create a quite some sizable agencies, special aids, and other things to handle programs. At the end of the day, they bring everything to a ministry for approval, where you have everybody going to Accra and hovering around the ministries, paying money here and there and lobbying here and there to get things done, because a few people have to take action for things to happen. So it's a balancing act. I would rather sit down, look at the programs I'm having, and then decide a cabinet size that allows me to deliver it. I want to agree with Prof. Mensah that a cabinet of 60 or so, yes, can be that optimum number, but I don't want to be very religious about it, that it must be a lean one. I would like to wait and see how President Mahama, if that happens in January.
Let's look at his... Let's look at his thoughts about the free SHS policy. He says it is here to stay, but then there's always been concerns about the need to review the policy. What's your thoughts about it?
You see, any country or any government that fashions its policy after extractivism, that is mining natural resources to develop, must focus on human capital development, because eventually, when those minerals run out, it is the human capital that you are going to depend on to keep the economy and the country going. So when you are doing that, I don't think anyone who understands economics will tell you that, free SHS is a useless endeavor, or spending huge amounts of our resources on education is useless. We are only worried about the quality, that we are increasingly falling behind in terms of the kind of human capital development paths we pursue. And we have largely engaged in populism rather than investing strategically and ensuring that the education we are delivering to our next generation can stand the test of time when they eventually take over the helm of affairs. So there is no one, I don't think Mahama or any other person has been against free HSS. I have been a very vocal critic of it. I'm a beneficiary of free education because I'm from Northern Ghana. So there is no way I will be against it. I'm against having that kind of apartheid system where you have very rich schools and then very poor schools, and then you now compromise the process in such a way that very wealthy and very rich people attend very good schools for free, and you leave the poor people who are under trees and then to attend it for free. I don't think that is equitable, and I don't think that that is a development. So yes, you have to seek to get the quality at least close to uniformity, so everybody everywhere is getting education, not just attending school for free.
Let's look at his promise to deal with illegal mining. He pledges that no member of his government will be involved in small-scale mining of any form. It's coming at a time where there are concerns that people in government are actually financing illegal mining activities in the rural communities. Do you think it's feasible?
You see, former President Mahama yesterday, I think, sounded like the returning CEO who perhaps was the last successful CEO that the shareholders can remember. So the level of articulation and the preparedness with which he delivered his speech captured many people. And I, for one, I was particularly excited about how blunt he was, going straight to the point, and indicating that it is because government functionaries, ministers, GCEs, and so on, engage in illegal mining of galamsey. That is why we are not able to tackle it. And I think that couldn't have been stated any better by anybody. The reason why we have failed this fight is because the people who wield power are the ones who engage in it. So we can launch thousands of operations, give them even Delta Force operation, excavator or anything. We are not going to stop it until we get the actors who will power withdrawing from galamsey. So I think that the former president was explicit, straight to the point and spot on when he said no one in his government will do that. Once we have the government agencies and policy actors, the influential people in our society out of it, then the security agencies will have the confidence to deal with whosoever is involved in it. So I largely agree with that stance, that the fight for galamsey must start from within the Jubilee House or the Flagstaff House, whatever we want to call it. And if the Flagstaff House stays out of galamsey, galamsey will stop being done.
I'll come back to get your thoughts about the fight against corruption, but let me bring in Lord Mensah at this time. There has been concerns that illegal mining is negatively impacting our economy, but then people in government have also been tipped to be financing some of these illegal mining activities. Here's a presidential candidate coming to make a promise to us that should he be elected, he would ensure that members of his cabinet or his government are not involved in illegal mining. Is this feasible? Professor Lord Mensah, that question is to you. Professor Lord Mensah, you have to unmute for us to hear you clearly. But let me come to Professor Michael so that we get his thoughts while we get Professor Lord Mensah on. Let's talk about corruption and the fight against corruption. every government has pledged each time there's campaign election to fight corruption, but then it appears to be quite difficult for every government. John Dramani Mahama is also pledging that his government will fight corruption. Do you think it is feasible?
I used to hold that view, but now that you have a different dispensation to compare with, you can say that in the past, at least under President Mahama's government, there was an effort to fight corruption. Because even while they were still in office, you had some of the government appointees in court, some eventually getting jailed and others being forced to resign because of certain accusations and certain court rulings. And we saw that happen. We just have to compare that with what is currently happening, where our institutions tend to be doing the cleanup job for people who are under investigations. You have the president being the exonerator in chief, defending people with millions of dollars under their beds, things that are unsavory, things that are immoral. You have the state agencies, and especially, I will always say, the Office of the Special Prosecutor, with all its resources, going to court to make embarrassing mistakes and getting people to walk off the hook. That is not fighting corruption. And if you compare now to what used to prevail in the past, I think that we have fallen far behind. It's like it has almost been normalized and institutionalized in government, and it is your right to plunder once you are in there. I think Prof. Mensah is back. Yes.
Is back, and thankfully he joins us now. Prof, I was asking you the thoughts that you have about John Dramani Mahama's pledge to fight illegal mining. He says that his government will ensure no member of his cabinet or his government will be involved in illegal mining. Do you think this can work?
Yeah, I think the former president will be able to fight Galamsey if he's able to determine exactly where sources of financing comes from at the local level campaigning. You know, at the local level campaign, you're going to get this Galamsey, workers. I grew up in a mining area, and I'm from mining area actually, so I know what happens there. The reason why the current administration, couldn't perform is that there are some key actors, right, within the administration that, doubles in, Galamsey, which you cannot take it from them. And most of the DCs within the Galamsey area, takes advantage of the situation, and also they themselves have mining site. And to some extent, they connive and collude with, those who are mining. And remember, they are coming from the same environment. So what happened is that before Operation Vanguard will get to the place, I mean, the DC is the more or less a rep of the government, at the district level. So before Vanguard gets in there, they know, when they will get in, and then when they will be dispatched to the site. And as a result of that, they relay information to the guys at the site. And most of the time, before the Vanguard operations, get there, they are gone. And so these are things that happens on the grounds in reality. And that is why I'm saying that if, the former president will be able to fight, Galamsey, they should look at how, they finance their campaign at the local level. So when you go to my area, for instance, who are those investing in campaigning over there? If you source monies from, these people, obviously their payback will be when, you get power. And at the end of the day, they will have access to mining site to mine to repay themselves. And so, I mean, before he can do that, he should be able to look at how campaign financing is done at a local level. I don't want to comment about the national level because it seems to be a national problem, but that will be a different topic for another day. But before the former president will be able to tackle Galamsey heads on, he should look at how, campaigns are being financed at the constituency and the district level as well.
Thank you so much, Professor Lord Mensah, and also Professor Ayanga. We'll leave it here. Let me bring in Dennis Miracle Abuaje. He's Director of Communications for Dr. Bawumia's campaign team. He joins us here live with more. Thanks for your time here on Newsdesk. Now, John Dramani Mahama is pledging that his future government, should he be elected, would ensure no member of his cabinet or government will be involved in illegal mining. He feels, or small-scale mining. He feels that's the way to combat illegal mining. What's Dr. Bawumia's vision to fight illegal mining?
We discussed some of these pronouncements from the former president. When he says that, what does he mean? Is he saying that he knows of a member of this government that is engaged in illegal mining? For which reason he says no member of his government will be involved in illegal mining? That thing is illegal. So why do you even or think of it being passed? Or idea, right? Why anybody even think on a member that was illegal? So really, what I think
Dennis, you have to position rightly for me. I seem to be losing you. You have to position rightly. Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. So
I think the point.
Yeah. He says his government, he would ensure that no member of his cabinet or government will be involved in small-scale mining.
I am saying that he says that's a panacea to the Galamsey situation. Is that what he's saying?
Yes, he is. He says that is how he feels he can fight illegal mining.
How did he handle the Galamsey situation when he was in government? When his Minister for Environment, Mahama Yarika, said that the fight against Galamsey is not going to work and that it's deep-necked and that the way it is almost impossible. What did he do about that? Why are we allowing the former president to speak as if he is now coming into government? He was president. Illegal mining didn't just spring up in 2017. Illegal mining in Galamsey was during his presidency. So how did he manage it? Is it a case that when he was president, he had members of his government involved in small-scale mining, and that is why he thinks that this is a new approach? We are not scrutinizing the former president well, and we are allowing him to get away with so many things. Dr. Mahama Bawumia has been very clear. He says that he believes these people who live in these mining communities are not just interested in the economic venture of mining, but they're also passionate about it because that is what they've been doing or they've seen their entire life. And so his approach is to properly resource small-scale miners and improve the community mining scheme by providing them with financial resources through the establishment of the Mineral Development Bank, which will ensure that small-scale mining and this community mining scheme would safely mine in these communities. In that case, anybody who wants to be part of the mining venture will have an opportunity to do it legitimately, safely, and appropriately. And he believes that when this is done, it would reduce their zeal for illegal venture in bringing this mineral out of the ground. That is Dr. Mahama Bawumia's strategy in dealing with that. And that is quite clear. He's spoken about this when he met the small-scale miners in Tapa. He's spoken about this when he met the small-scale miners in the Western North. That it's difficult for us to fight illegal mining or Galamsey if we do not create an alternative way of safely mining for these people. And so let's set up the Mineral Development Bank. Let's build the capacity of the small-scale miners. Let's decentralize the licensing regime of small-scale mining. Let's get the traditional authorities a lot more involved in this. And this is something that has already been started. As we speak, the Minerals Commission is established in most of the mining districts, and a lot more are being put up. The Minerals Commission has set up a lot of regional officers, and they are still expanding. And Dr. Mahama Bawumia is saying, let's improve upon this by getting the local chiefs, the traditional authorities involved a bit more, by building the financial capacity of the small-scale miners, by expanding the community mining schemes, so that these people who hitherto would have gone to do illegal mining can be part of this community mining scheme, and then they can mine safely, mine appropriately, without it affecting our environment. That is the solution. It's quite clear about that.
Thank you, Miracles Abuaji. Now, away